I want to make sure you're clear on the difference between good debt and bad debt, investor debt versus consumer debt. Consumer debt, very bad because you're working to pay off a high interest loan that's not making you any money at all. Whereas investor debt actually makes you money. So if you were to pay your house off, or you want a loan for your house, that is a consumer debt. You want that to be as low interest payment as possible because your house really doesn't make you any money. It's a cost. There's no, if you pay off your house, it's dead equity. There's no money to be generated other than when you sell it, but then you still need a place to live. So you got to roll that into the next property you're going to buy, and so on and so forth. So it's really not income generating per se, unless you get a home equity line of credit, pull money out, which is exactly what I did with this property. And this property actually bought me a hotel that makes 22% return. So my house is making 22% return on the money that it borrowed. So makes a lot of sense for me to do that. Now, it's very important that you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. So a credit card debt could be good or bad depending on what you spend on the credit card. If I go out for dinner, I want to pay my card off with the income that I get from my tenants, because I don't want to pay interest because that's consumer debt. Don't want to do that. Now, if I take a loan from my credit card, which I can do, pull money out with a balance transfer check at 0% or very close to that, I am then making money on my credit card. Extremely important. So if I'm borrowing money even at 11%, which is very typical for me, I'll even borrow money at 12%. Shit, I'll borrow money at 20% if I'm making a 50% return. In fact, if I'm making a 50% return on cash, and if you're taking over debt and getting people to walk away, that is actually quite common. In fact, the minimum we're going to get is about 30% cash on cash return. So very exciting when you see the opportunities that arise from taking over debt. But that's not what this little session is about. So good debt is something that makes you money. So you borrow money at 11 and the thing makes you 16%, which is the difference. So if you borrow at 11 and the property makes you 16, you're still making a 5% spread, which is about $50K per $1 million. So, if you're playing with a $10 million property, that's $500,000 of passive income, even though you're paying an extremely high interest rate. And the magic of that is the money is very easily accessible when you're paying a higher return, meaning that when you refinance, you pay off your investor and you replace that 11% with a 5% long-term debt. And then if you've increased the income, which is what you're supposed to do, let's say to 17% return, now you're making a 12% spread between the new loan of 5% and the 17% that you were increased the NOI to. So, and 12% is $120,000 per million, meaning that if it's a $5 million property, now you're making just a shit ton of money, which is phenomenal, which is very exciting for you, which is over $1 million a year, or close to it actually. So pretty damn cool. And again, so understand that you want money to work for you, and you don't want to have to work for money. And if you understand the differences between good debt and bad debt, you're going to be very, very, very well off very quickly. So remember, it doesn't matter what it costs, it's what it makes you that counts. So would I pay 11% interest on a personal property? The answer is absolutely never. I want that as close to zero as possible because it's personal debt. It's debt that I have to pay for or my tenants have to pay for. There's no income from it. But if I'm making a 30% return, would I borrow money at 15%? So the person let's say that I need $200,000 for someone to, a seller wants $200,000 for them to walk away, and that property makes $100,000 a year of net income. So if I give them $200,000, I would net $100,000 a year. No brainer. So would I borrow the $200,000 at 15%? Well, of course I would. That's a $30,000 interest payment per year. So if I'm making $100,000 and I'm paying off $30,000 just in interest, guess what? I'm still making 70 grand passive income, still paying outrageous 15% returns. I mean, 50% to the person or the entity that lent me the money, or the individual, or my grandmother, or my self-directed Roth IRA, or my RRSP if I'm Canadian, or my super fund if I'm Australian, or whatever funds you have access to that are for retirement. You can actually have your retirement account pay for those things at high interest pay it back, and still make out like a bandit. So understand that good debt is good, bad debt is bad. You want your credit cards to be as close to zero as possible unless they're making you money. And anything that makes you money is good debt. So of course, if you've invested in mentorship, that's great debt because you're learning more so you can leverage more, so you can take the information and actually create cash out of it, never using your own money again. So that is actually the best investment you could ever make, is always in yourself, because no one can take that away from you. The knowledge that we're going to empower you with is yours forever to keep. I'm very excited for you to apply it and make a ton of money at it so your kids have a fantastic life and they didn't have to struggle as hard as we did, which is what this is all about.